without shame. That's it. And if somebody is trying to mess with your expression of being yourself as fuck, then they are messing with your boundaries. They're trying to knock you out of the things that make you comfortable, where your mental health stays the healthiest in that box. So for me, what I've learned in my life, having grown up in a family where I've always felt I had to help and contribute with pleasure, but it's something that not every kid experiences. I know you have a similar experience.
Yeah.
You feel a sense of duty to your family and to the people in your life. So when you build that as part of your personality, right, helping and making sure that you are always being useful, you tend to seek out people's problems so that you can help them with those problems. You tend to make people feel that they can rely on you. And if they don't rely on you, you think to yourself, hey, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm trying to help. So that's, the boundaries go two ways. There's bilateral boundaries, as I say. Side one is classic idea of boundaries, which is you don't let people mess with your shit. You don't let people cross your line. The other side of boundaries is you have to stop yourself from crossing other people's line. Because just because you think you're going to help them doesn't mean they want that help, right? And it doesn't mean that you can help them. Even if you think you can, even if you know you can, that's very hard for me in my life. It's been hard for me to drop the idea that I can't help this person because they don't want my help.
It's like the superhero syndrome.
Very much so.
I need to help this person.
But you have to learn to stop yourself,
Yeah.
right? Overall, I would say that boundaries are the shortcut to mental health, to maintaining your mental health. And I think that honesty is the only way to express your boundaries. And cultivating bravery is the only way that you're going to be able to be honest across the board in your life.
Why do you think people are not honest anymore? Or why does it feel like it?
Yeah, it's a classic case of taking the safest possible route. So if you grow up in a home, let's not say everything is related to your upbringing, but I'm of the classic school of thought that you spend the first maybe 12, 11 years of your life getting shaped by your environmental factors. You're not really in charge of who you want to become, right? You have quite a few, relatively limited amount of years in adolescence where you choose who you want to become. But I would say that the reason people learn the habit of trying to hide their true feelings is because in their upbringing, they were met with consequences for being honest, for expressing their needs. So imagine you grow up in an abusive home where if you express your needs to your mother or your father, and your mother or father doesn't meet those needs, one, you learn that the pain of expressing the need and not getting it is so bad that you stop expressing any need. You convince yourself that you don't need anything because it's safer that way. And two, you learn that when you are honest to your parents, hey, mom, I don't, like the way you're behaving, or hey, bro, I don't like the way you're behaving. If they hit you or they yell at you or they, if in any way you're just met with anything other than an understanding halfway point of, let's say, calm discussion, you're just going to learn that being honest means getting met with really bad feelings, really bad feelings. So when you grow up in a home where you don't know how to express yourself because you don't know which expression leads to which consequences, you take the safest possible route, which is always people-pleasing. That's the safest possible route. So this is a real pandemic, especially in Anglo cultures, right? In the US, in England for sure. I know that it's a common trope in the UK that people just generally put on a polite face and express politeness, even if they're kind of, holding something in. I will say that Poland is wonderful at being very openly expressive. So why aren't people honest? They don't feel safe expressing their true feelings and their true needs because historically they've been met with resistance or backlash for that reason.
So what led you to be a boundaries advocate?
It's my official title.
Exactly. Yeah.
What led me to be an advocate for boundaries is my own personal realization that I was martyring myself far too often to please others, because that's how I was raised. That's how I grew up. I grew up feeling like my duty in this life is to be useful, to be helpful. But that's a toxic way of being. Eventually, you lose concern for yourself, right? Or at least you put it second or even third. I mean, if you're asking about my personal journey, yeah, it's a long one. I mean,
Any story that you can share regarding that, the boundaries?
sure. There were a few key moments, I would say, that were the kind of the catalysts for the catharsis that led me to go from somebody who thought life was kind of just easy so I could just breeze through it, to then being somebody who has to put up boundaries and defend myself. I call these moments like the loss of innocence moments, because when you're
Innocence, love that.
young, you don't realize that the world consists of individuals that share different paradigms on life. The bliss of youth is in ignorance of the differences that people have toward morality or ethics or just behavior. So when you're a young person, why do kids fall for predators, right? Strangers, they don't know that there are people that are bad. They just assume that everybody's the same giggly, innocent individual that they are. So even as an adult, even in your early 20s, that's why your 20s feel like bliss. You have this autonomy. You are sexually mature. You're physically mature. You have some money, a little bit to do things. But you also still have that beautiful naivety.
Yeah.
Beautiful naivety of youth, where you think that the rest of the world is in on the same joke as you, right? It takes, unfortunately, for a lot of people, it takes tragedy. It takes a monster on their journey to really expose them to the darker side of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in those moments, you lose innocence, and those are incredibly destructive to people who are typically trusting and open. I would say I was one of those people. Up until around 2014, I had maintained that sense of optimism and naivety and innocence. Anyway, yeah, I got caught in this crazy scheme. It was almost like a movie where I was dating this girl who, over the course of a year, through very subtle means, through hacking my trust and my naivety, while at the same time love bombing me, as people love this word. Yeah, over the course of a year, her health began deteriorating, and the cancer diagnosis sprung up. She was losing her hair. She was losing weight. A lot of tragedy was happening in her life. And again, because of my lack of boundaries at that time, the boundaries of the side where I wasn't able to stop myself from getting involved in her hardship, I got deeply involved, and I took it very to heart, and I began to really suffer. I think through some sense of heightened empathy, I took on a lot of her pain and a lot of her suffering, and I began to suffer myself, and I began to get sick, and my body began to fail, because this was the first kind of flash of darkness I'd had in a long streak of light.
Wow.
And in that flash of darkness, it wasn't something I could fix. I was so used to solving problems like that easily.
This one's a bigger one.
What do you do with cancer?
Cancer, man.
Ooh. What do you do with cancer? I don't have yeah. So that was a long time, and we, grew very close over that period. A lot of things happened, but, tragedy did occur, and it wasn't that she had died or something along those lines, but I found out that through an almost unbelievable scheme, she was lying.
Oh my God. About the cancer thing?
About cancer.
What about the falling hair and she was just all faking it?
Correct.
Oh my God.
Even though this experience was a loss of innocence moment for me, and it caused me true hell, mentally and physically, it also cultivated in me an ultimate sense of forgiveness, because yes, there are people in this world that you have to defend yourself against, but that should always be a reluctant thing. Boundaries should be reluctant, because ideal humanity is connected. Ideal humanity is almost one heart. We should be a part of each other's lives as much as humanly possible, because we need each other. We thrive like that.
Yeah. Tribe.
So boundaries, when you do have to put them down, they should be reluctant, and you shouldn't want to, but you just have to. In the same way that if somebody breaks into your home, you don't want to kill somebody. You don't want to hurt anybody, but you have to. You have to.
So how did you take that experience about all these lies, and what was your reaction to it, and how did you grow from that incident story?
Yeah, it took a long time. I won't lie to you. I left Poland. I was extremely hurt, to the point where I had a mental health crisis, because it was an actual, there were many layers of what had been hacked in me to allow that lie to happen. My ego, this superhero sense that I was doing something good for her, this sense of duty that I've always had toward my mother, to take care of her. Since the beginning of my life, I can only remember this sense of duty that I have to take care of my mom, which we also share culturally. And having been in Poland, I think that I had carried this guilt that I was away from my mom. So this opportunity to help her filled that gap, you see?